Okay, just take a little look at the board here without me in front of the camera, because there's some terminology that becomes important as we go on through all the slides. You saw this a few slides ago, but I'd like to highlight it again. I'm going to step through. Hello. In green, the entire thing is called the radical. So when you say deal with the radical, that means the entire thing. Okay? And there's pieces of it. The radical sign is what we normally call the root sign, the square root sign. Technically, it's called the radical sign. The radicand, and you'll see this language in future slides as well, the radicand is the number inside. Okay? Now, if it's a square root, or any even number root, square root, fourth root, sixth root, this radicand must be positive to have a solution. Okay? If it's an odd root, cube root, fifth root, seventh root, it does not have to be positive. It could be positive or negative and still have a solution. Now, how do you know if it's a square root or a fourth root or a cube root? You have something called the index. Traditionally, if there's nothing in front of the radical sign, that means it's a square root. Okay? And square root we're very familiar with. If I say take the square root of 49, you'll say 7 because 7 times 7 is 49. Okay? If it's anything other than the square root, the index will be shown. So if it's a cube root, the index will be a 3. It'll be inside kind of the loop or the hook of the radical sign. Okay? If it's a fifth root, then that index would be a 5. If it's a fourth root, the index would be a 4, and so on. Okay? So important terminology, we'll go through it one more time. The entire thing is called the radical. Right? The sign is called the radical sign. Right? The small number out front is called the index, and the number inside is called the radicand. And you'll see those a number of times as we go along. Now, the one thing I also want to let you know, this one is nice if it's a square root. The square root of 49 is 7. The cube root of 49 is a number such that the number times the number times the number equals 49. Right? Now, we know that that's not a nice number, that a whole number, it's a decimal. Right? Because if I take 3 times 3 times 3, I know that's 27. And if I take 4 times 4 times 4, I know that is 64. And since 49 is in the middle, it will have to be 3 decimals something, right? These numbers have to be the same, and we could calculate the decimal using the calculator. Right? The one thing is, anytime you don't get a perfect square or a perfect cube where it's a nice number, these are always non-terminating, non-repeating decimals, which means the decimal goes on forever and does not have a repeating pattern. Okay? It also means it's an irrational number. Okay? And an irrational number cannot be written as a fraction. We'll talk more next slide.